It's Halloween Horror Nights, motherfuckers. No!
I just made that.
I love it. Holy shit. I love that. I love that so much. That was probably, I'm so mad that I'm not going to HHN, like, again. I mean, I already went, and I'm sad that I'm not going again this year, because now that's going to be in the back of my mind.
I'm going to save that if I can make something like this work next year, because
Yes,
I try and do it
it.
every year, so...
Hell yeah.
Hopefully.
Fuck yeah.
But you've only done, because I've seen some of the Insta stories.
Mm-hmm.
The in-stories.
The in-stories.
Whatever the kids are calling it. And you've only done Hollywood, right?
Yeah, I've never been to Florida, so Hollywood's pretty much the only Halloween Horror Nights that I've done. And this was the second time I've ever done Halloween Horror Nights.
Okay, when was your first?
My first... Oh, let me tell you about my first. The year was 2014, and I was living in California at the time. I was doing the Disney college program. And my boyfriend at the time was really, really into like going to Halloween Horror Nights every year with his grandfather and his friend, and because we were dating.
I thought you were about to say. So my boyfriend at the time, he was really into going to Halloween Horror Nights with his girlfriend. Just the...
Yeah.
He just let it slip one day, and that's when it ended.
Oopsie doodle. But anyway. So my boyfriend at the time, like 80 years ago, my boyfriend at the time, because I was living there for the Disney college program, and because he went to Halloween Horror Nights almost every year, he decided I should tag along. Now, 2014, if you can't remember, was just the year of Walking Dead and Purge shit everywhere. Like, I even still have the lanyard from it. Let me go ahead and grab that.
Oh boy.
Holy fuck. Oh shit. It's not even in this fucking thing. It's in the other anyway. We got like the equivalent of the fast pass for it. But yeah, it was Walking Dead stuff, and it was Purge
up the
stuff.
Kazoo. Walking Dead up the kazoo.
Yeah, Walking Dead up the kazoo. But yeah. And
wait, isn't that Tim Allen tweet? He was talking about the people who do the HHN in Hollywood, right? The Jabberwockies?
Oh, of course. That's what he's talking about. Couldn't be like any racist garbage, obviously. But anyway, I had this weird fear of zombies at the time. Like, I still don't like zombie movies to this day. Yes. Oh goodness. Yeah. Let's torture the person with the phobia. Sure. But yeah, I had like this really bad fear of zombies. And because it was Walking Dead stuff everywhere, and also because I wasn't really used to a lot of like haunts at the time, I was just a crying hysterical mess most of the time. There was the point where we went through like the terror tunnel to like a bit of the backlot portion for some of the mazes, and it was the Walking Dead in the terror tunnel. And I just remember being buried in my ex's just arm, crying hysterically as these zombies just get up close and personal. I feel them. I don't see them because I got my eyes closed, but they're just up close personal. Just like... But some of the mazes were fun.
No. So, my first... Well, we'll go into mine, but let me see if we can get this working. So, you said many moons ago you were one of those Girl Scouts, correct?
Yes, I used to sell Girl Scout cookies, had the whole shebang. I even recently found my old junior uniform, I think.
Your junior what?
My junior uniform. Because Girl Scouts, they go from daisies to brownies to juniors to cadets to seniors to adults.
Okay. Alright, so... Now, if you ever find yourself, like if you have a Girl Scout of your own one day... or kidnap one. and you need to know, like, the ins and outs of, like, cookie selling, and you need a refresher. The guys at Red Letter Media watched a Girl Scout troop training video, and this is their thoughts on it.
The long-awaited training video.
Yeah, this one.
Leap
to the future! Girl Scout cookie sale troop training 2000!
That could have been
Tim,
for
in
me.
case you ever needed tips on how to sell your own Girl Scout cookies, this tape will be extremely useful.
It seems like
Yes,
it wasn't
was,
rewound, so
totally.
maybe they stopped it at the sweet spot.
It would be so cool to sing with her on stage. In the Girl Scouts together, we change the world! Hey, look, Cassie, you've got mail.
Aloha, Cassie.
Is that supposed to be an email? It's a Word document.
She said
very
the Word document
Kelly.
in
Oh,
email.
okay, it was like an attachment.
Yeah,
Kelly
right.
Rowland
So,
texting
Tim,
Nelly.
would you please talk about Leap to the Future, Girl Scout Cookie Sale 2000 troop training?
Well,
no,
it was
you may take over.
definitely a leap to the future.
That was an average day in Girl Scouts, by the way.
Cookie sale training, though, was lacking.
Made
There's
rainbows.
a literal leap
we
to the
collected
future.
Stars. We sent people Word documents.
Look out, it's a wormhole!
It's the Y2K virus.
Oh my
Wormholes
god!
on the universe.
I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
There was absolutely no cookie training sale. There was
Don't go up to a car, don't go up...
Don't
go-
attack a car. It was like, yeah, no approaching cars.
unless it's a
A
regulated
drive-through.
drive-through. Yes, yes.
Although all the informative stuff was
Drive-through
just a couple
cookie
of really
experience.
quick text screens, the rest of it was bullshit.
This is so cool. Look at me, I'm flying.
It was some director trying to show his style. I'm gonna make a science fiction blockbuster after this. Let me show you what I can do.
Are we the
This was Christopher
Matrix
Nolan,
now?
actually. This was, yeah. Christopher Nolan directed this.
Better hop aboard, Pilgrim, because Do-Si-Do is jumping into the cookie sale of the century. Yeehaw!
I think the one and only really important part of the video, despite all the spectacle and the show and the glitz and the glamour, was the disclaimer. This entire video is an asterisk saying, don't go in a stranger's house. Don't get kidnapped. We're not legally responsible if that happens because we warned you.
Every moment we're alive, it's our love that will survive. In the Girl Scouts together, we change the world.
What? That's not how computrators work.
Computron
Yes.
noises.
Well, how did they? Okay, so it starts with these three Girl Scouts
Yes.
in a two-wall bedroom.
Yeah, they just came in from doing something
They were
fun.
doing something fun, and then they came into the bedroom and they have the classic iMac, the first iMac, right? The one with the colored sides.
Yeah, backs.
And then how do they travel to the future?
Well,
how
they
does
get
this happen?
They get a magical email that comes through.
Oh, the email, yeah.
And Melinda is like, open up the secret link.
You'll get a special glimpse into some of the exciting things the future holds for girls of endless faith and love like you.
You can see the cursor.
Yeah.
You asshole.
It's an old
The only
Mac.
thing it needs is like a word that's spelled wrong with the red underline.
It's a Mac like Word document,
Yeah.
like a notepad doc or whatever.
Listen, that's something they don't teach you in this video. They tell you not to go up to like strangers' cars, but they don't say if you get an email from someone inviting you into the future, maybe just close that out.
Well, it's 2000.
Well, it was
Who
just
cares? 2000. You open up everything. You're just like, what the hell is that?
it was just a word.
What happened to my shit?
It's just a Word document change.
Never fails.
Whoa, it's beautiful.
Did you notice their bed transformed into a future bed?
I did not.
Yeah.
I noticed the desk was a future
The desk was like a Star Trek: The Next Generation like flat panel like.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But then
yeah.
the bed, they had an older bed, and then it was like a floating bed. It was like a sci-fi bed.
I did not notice that.
So they went all out in this production.
Well, you know, it's that kind of attention to detail that I expect from Christopher Nolan
Yeah.
in his first production. Yeah.
You know, our troop goals this year are out of this world. We're planning a trip to
Oh.
space camp, canoeing,
Wasn't that girl
ski
sitting
trip,
on the chair
horseback
like
riding,
that?
and other fun
Like
things.
she's
Some corporate-y kind of
Like she's controlling
think
them.
tank was like, oh God, we're turning the millennium into 2000s. The Girl Scouts in their little uniforms and doing their things, and
We need
it's
to
gonna-
update this.
Yeah, it's going to seem so antiquated in the 2000s. Let's make a video that says Girl Scouts are moving into the future, and then that's kind of like, and there was no content. It was just like
People have this perception that Girl Scouts just sell cookies,
Yeah.
but we're going to make a video where we
Yeah.
show that they sell cookies.
No, they use email. They use email, and they talk about computers, and then they fly through space.
That's the Girl Scout experience.
They said it's like, we're going to take a step on the moon, like, again.
One small
Do
step
it.
for girls, one
Do it.
giant step for girl kind.
But the moon that girl stepped on did not look nice.
Although, to be fair,
looked
you
like
don't
it
have to
was
wear
made
any
of
sort of like
cheese.
spacesuit when
There
you're
you
on
go.
that moon. So
Maybe they got like a...
they got a stop sign at one point.
Nothing can stop us from taking it to the future and beyond.
And that was in 2000,
They
2001.
blew it up.
Look
Where
how far
they
we've
are
come
now?
since then.
So the two important takeaways are: don't get kidnapped while selling our cookies, and Girl Scouts are cool.
They're in the future. It's just nonsense. It's literal nonsense.
They are flying at one point, and they're really flying.
They go warp speed.
Yeah.
And
Enjoy
without
this-
a spacesuit
this
or
Girl
a
Scout
spaceship,
training
I don't know
video
how
with
they
us,
survived,
Dave.
but they
Hi,
did it.
Well, you're not in the Girl
Dave.
Scouts.
It's a badge you earn.
Yeah, that's a badge.
Interstellar travel.
Look, in the future, outer space has air.
In the year 2000.
In the year 2000.
That's what happens.
Yes.
What? What?
What the fuck?
Oh God! There's so many people in my room.
What the hell?
Now the lady that they're about to
The end
show.
of the video
I want to know if you were.
is it cuts to back to the bedroom, and then we realize that we're in a like live
this lady,
TV
like,
studio.
famous Girl Scout?
And then the girls
I
start
don't know
rapping.
who that is.
Girl Scouts, and we said, if you like a little challenge, well, we found a way. Maybe you were thinking that you didn't fit in, but we've got a story now. Let us begin.
Do you think that's really her rapping?
With the Girl Scouts, Change the world.
So what does this have to do with Porn Nights?
Is that even like obviously the
This
kids
is like-
aren't rapping, but is
Yeah, oh
that
God.
actually Melinda
this
rap?
is, This is too much.
No, I was
Much.
back at Animazement when I had Gabby on. She was like, "Oh, I sold Girl Scout cookies." I was like, "Okay, I know of something." But this is
This is too cringe. This is too much.
they say this is the end, so I'll go ahead and shut this off. But but at the end they say that they finally shut the tape off when like it's like the video ends and then it has like the post-credit scene is that woman that they were with like coming out going, "I'm going to play my guitar while you're here and play my songs," and it's like, no, we're done now. So since Dave's here, we can I'll bust this out again.
Oh,
It's Halloween Horror Nights, motherfuckers. No!
I can't get over that. I can't get over that.
Made that in 5 minutes. It's great.
That's wonderful.
All right. So Gabby went through her first experience with Horror Nights. So
It was 2014. I was with my ex at the time. It was full of zombies back when I had an intense fear of zombies. So you can imagine the mix wasn't that great. However, there was also the American Werewolf in London maze. That was really cool. I thought that was really cool. There was also a From Dusk Till Dawn maze, which I thought was really cool too. Yeah. And then the maze that I wasn't like scared of, but like I was stupidly annoyed with was Clowns 3D. I think it was the Slash maze. And it just smelled like cotton candy and gave me like a headache and a stomach ache. I wasn't even scared. I was just disgusted.
So was it like an off-brand Killer Clowns?
It was! Thinking about it now, it was very much an off-brand Killer Clowns from outer space.
Before they just actually got the license.
Mm-hmm. Because, like, it was Killer Clowns from outer space, except there was, like, more toilets in it.
Sure.
Yeah, it was
wait, so toilets were a part of like the narrative of the maze?
I remember there was a part where it was like they were in like this bathroom and there were like toilets and vomit and shit everywhere in it. Cause yeah, and of course there were killer clowns because it's clowns.
I went through a toilet-themed maze this year that I'm sure we'll get to later, but...
Did you say clowns?
Clowns.
I was going through like short clips I had. You can only put in StreamYard only like so big of files, and so I just whatever drops I can throw in here. And so I got 10 seconds of a clown. So,
yeah.
So Dave, your first experience, either Horror Nights or like an equivalent, like Scary Farm or like Scarowinds that we have at Carowinds or whatever.
I believe as far as I recall, my first Horror Nights experience was 2011 in Orlando.
So you did get to do one in Orlando when you were down
there. I did 2011 and 2012. Both those years I did in Orlando. I guess my first Universal haunted maze experience was in 2009. The Universal House of Horrors in Hollywood, the year-round maze they used to have, which was fine. The converted Van Helsing maze.
I've heard good things about it.
It had parts I liked. It had there was a whole Frankenstein laboratory room that I believe was left over from the Van Helsing maze, but they just sort of swept aside any Van Helsing associations. Like, no, it's real Frankenstein.
We can get into that too, because I think this might be. I'll get into the weeds, but I think this might be the first year, or I might have noticed it maybe last year, but where them recycling assets for the mazes became more obvious.
Yeah, well, last year in Hollywood, almost every maze was completely recycled.
Yeah. So I've heard.
I think I remember that from Charlie and Haley's vlog, because it was kind of like a greatest hits year. There wasn't really a new one, or there might have been one new one.
I think the only new one was Haunting of Hill House, and I think everything else was
wasn't the Bride. Bride was the new one.
Right.
Yeah, Bride was the only other new one that year. And I'm so mad I never got to do Bride, because Bride looks so much fun.
Bride was good.
I did Legends Collide this year, and that got me pretty bad. that got me. It was pretty as hell. But there's a scene where Dracula's bidding doing his thing. And I guess spoilers for the maze, if whatever. There's a scene where Dracula's just, bidding towards you and just all that. And I was like, no, thank you. And then I was walking away, and just like before the exit, I didn't notice it. And then flash, mannequins of Dracula's brides just come at me screaming.
Yeah.
Oh, I felt like they were trying to get at me for flirting with Dracula. I'm sorry.
Legends Collide was good, but I did not feel like it ever really. I didn't feel like the mashup ever really congealed. Like,
no.
It
so
felt like
that was okay. So that was a problem out there
Wolfman.
as well.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, it was like, here's the Wolfman. Now here's the Mummy. Now here's Dracula. Now here's a room where all three of them attack you, and it didn't really feel like the stories intersected in any.
And at the very
real
end,
way.
Anubis comes out just
Yeah.
randomly. Yeah, Anubis is there. Yeah,
It was
there
cool,
is.
but yeah.
Yeah,
I know each coast has its own like creative team, and like the mazes don't. Even if like the year that both coasts had Ghostbusters, I've seen the Hollywood footage, and they're not exactly the same.
Yes, I've been told. I haven't checked myself, but I've been told that this year the Weekend's maze is the same on both coasts. But
Yeah, it looks the same. Or
Yeah.
from what I've seen, it kind of looks the same. By the way, Weekend Maze was like my favorite maze for the whole one.
I was surprised how much I loved it.
Yeah,
Right?
That was one where it's like, I was thinking this going into it because they have like his music blasting, and a lot of it like sounded like off the wall era Michael Jackson, and so when you're going into like a maze like a pop artist who's like kind of trying to emulate Michael Jackson, and he's doing a horror thing now, well, of course, and then the maze was actually.
Well, I
pretty
mean,
good.
if you've seen the music video, because the Weekend Maze is based off of his album After Hours, and with After Hours, he had a couple of music videos for the songs from After Hours, and they followed like kind of a little bit of a story, and it was very horror themed. Like, I think the first one was Heartless, and it starts out very fuckboy-y, and then he looks like a psychoactive toad, and then that's when all the weird shit starts happening. So then you go into Blinding Lights, and like, he's driving around and like floating around and doing that. And then you get into After Hours, and that's where he's on the subway about to kill somebody. And then In Your Eyes is when he's chasing the girl, and the girl cuts his head off. And then after that, the other music video which was the song that I cannot remember. I can't remember the name of the song. That's not what it's but it's with the it's with the plastic surgery obsessed models that find the Weekend's head, and they make like this weird human centipede body from all that. So it's not like it came out of nowhere for the Weekend. In fact, the Weekend has been like doing like spooky sounding music for pretty much years at this point, because there's the old joke that the Weekend does music that sounds like it would play at a haunted strip club. So it's the spooky, sexy music, and I loved every little bit of it. However, I did not appreciate the giant Weekend toad monster that came.
I don't know if that was in this one. So this year I've done every maze once except for one here. And I just haven't. That's just the way timing has worked out. I've got the ticket. I've got 2 more nights to do Horror Nights. I'm going to do like repeat a few and do the last one. But I mentioned the differences on coast because with the Legends Collide here, it seemed like they tried. I don't know if this is the same for Hollywood, but it seemed like they tried to have some kind of narrative where it's centered around Mummy, like you're in the tomb, but then for some reason Wolfman and Dracula are there too. In Hollywood, is it like they're separated and then they come together, or is it all like the setting is Mummy and then
the Hollywood narrative is that there's this amulet and each monster wants to get it for whatever reason. There's a pre-show video that
a pre-show video with like footage from the classic movies, but voice actors who are clearly like 22 years old.
Well, one of them is John Murdy.
We have no pre-show video, so it's you're kind of left.
Yeah, one of them is
on
just
your
Murdy
own.
himself.
Yeah, the guy that played the Wolfman is John Murdy himself. But yeah, it's just the whole plot of the West Coast Monsters maze is that there's this amulet and they all want it, but in the end, Anubis gets it because I guess it came from Anubis or something. And I also heard like the East Coast is like the prequel to the West Coast, and the West Coast is the sequel to the East Coast or something.
I've heard that too. I don't know how that works, but I've heard that too.
That's the next step, is that you're going to have prequels and sequels on each coast, and that's how they're going to get you.
I mean, shared theme park universes are already a thing, but seasonal, like limited run seasonal shared theme park universes that do not come back every year, that seems like a dick move because I can't go to both coasts in 1 month.
So does that mean Walt Disney World's gonna get Haunted Mansion 2: The Spookying? At some point?
Speaking of, we're live now, and Dave is here. So why don't you show off your thing?
Oh, speaking of Haunted Mansion, I don't know. I think you saw this on me like one time I visited you, but Evers and Evers
Hello.
Real Estate. Hi, Casey.
Hey, Casey.
Evers and Evers Realty.
Is that a super yaki?
Yes, it is super yaki, and I kind of went through a little bit of hell getting this exact sweater because they sent me one in the wrong color, and but they were very polite in the exchange. It was very nice. I cannot recommend super yaki enough. So, yeah.
I haven't done the one I haven't done yet, but of all of them, I don't know if it's my favorite, but they've got one called Dead Man's Pier, where I can't think of another Horror Nights maze I've ever done where there's some kind.
Allie overheard us talking about super yaki, so
Hi, Allie.
Hi.
I'm wearing a super yaki sweater. That's why we're.
Gabby is wearing the super yaki Evers and Evers.
Yes.
So that's why I came up.
Nice. It was like a Christmas gift to myself.
I'm slightly ashamed I did not buy the Austin Powers drop of the band t-shirt.
Oh my god, it looks so good.
It looks
I
good,
really
but
wish.
broke.
No, Allie had told me when they did a Rocketeer one, and they had like like the baseball jersey with like the cafe logo on it.
The Bulldog Cafe, yeah.
Yeah, and I really wanted to get that one, and I was thinking, well, I'll get it later, and I did not know that company is like, okay, we'll do this for like a month or two, and then okay, bye. So I
think
I didn't
sometimes
get it.
they bring designs back.
They do sometimes bring designs back, but like their fan base, Ryan, is like borderline psychotic, and I mean this with love because I am a part of that fan base. But like once those designs go out, like they tend to sell pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
I think another one I saw when I was looking through their website, it's also gone. It's in the 90s Batman movie font, and it just said Uma Thurman is Poison Ivy. And I was thinking about getting that because I mean, until recently they just put up a Batman and Robin shirt, but you can't really find any Batman and Robin anything, because I guess that was the one where it's like, okay, we'll do Batman Forever and Batman Returns in '89. We'll milk those, but we won't do anything with that other one. Now they're kind of doing something with that other one. So.
No, it's what I do really appreciate about Superyaki is that they're very affectionate about like pop culture detritus, and I mean this just like as like the stuff, not like as a negative, but like as the stuff that comes with pop culture, stuff that tends to get pushed to the marginalized waysides. Like they really bring it back up to kind of like elevate and celebrate. So having stuff like from like Batman and Robin movie, having like a whole bunch of stuff from the Josie and Pussycats movie, which has been having like a big resurgence recently. It's just like it's nice that they don't go highbrow, that they really like actively look at the stuff that people really like loved when they were kids. That we may like it back today and be like, whatever. But it's like,
Yeah.
No, it's solid, and it's like I really keep on wanting to buy like the Brendan Fraser t-shirts when they come out. But it's like, I'll do it next time. By the time I think I'll do it now, it's like gone. Right?
Yeah.
Mummies.
Yeah.
Well, with my order, they sent me a pack of Anastasia trading cards from the movie.
There are 7 packs of those in our bookcase right now.
That have all come with different orders.
Yeah.
Also a pack of like of trading cards from a Benji movie.
Yes.
Holy shit.
A Benji movie, which one? It's up in the air.
Yeah, I don't remember which one.
Yeah, it's we need to like look through it. Brian, if you're ever back in the Cali area, we will give you some to take home if you want. But
some of the Anastasia cards.
Yeah,
we got Anastasia.
That is so. There's the Anastasia Broadway show now, and it went out on tour,
Yep.
and it was supposed to hit Durham. It was scheduled for April 2020. And then I think it was postponed, and then they outright canceled it.
Oh.
And then I didn't know about this till I went to see Weird Al in Charlotte over the summer, that Anastasia was going to be going to Charlotte, and then I saw the dates, and it was while I'm here.
Oh,
So,
I'm sorry.
So hopefully, we just
Dang.
opened, in Greensboro, they just opened a new theater, and it's been getting the tours, like it got Wicked and Rent and a few other things, and so if Anastasia goes long enough, hopefully they'll come back through, because I've heard from what I can tell of it, and I love Anastasia the movie, but they're like, it cuts out kind of the parts that like Rasputin and all of the trappings of like 90s kids movies are kind of
it's not
cut out.
It kind of streamlines it like the Newsies Broadway version does.
There isn't
Which I
like the
just-
fantastical.
Yeah. Which I just... So I saw the original Newsies a while ago, before I ever saw the Broadway. And then it was on tour in Durham, and we went to see that. And then they screened the movie version a year later, and went and saw that. And then, like, around... whatever it was, Disney Plus Day, was that September, whenever that was? AMC Theaters was doing, it was Disney Plus Favorites for $5. But the lineup was, like, it was Rogue One and Thor Ragnarok and Cars. Like, it was the strangest, like, selection. Like
That is a weird combination of movies. That is like a grab bag.
But
I wonder
then,
if it's like a
what was that?
I wonder if it's like a combination of like stuff that's really popular with the circus, but like algorithmically generated / cheapest to license at that point. So,
Well, I mean, it could be that, but like one of them was Encanto, which I mean that obviously,
Of course, yeah.
But the last one, I went to see it because Fandango had it listed as Newsies the Broadway movie, and then I get there and it was the '92 movie.
Oh my god.
Which, I mean, I didn't mind because I had never seen... It had been so long since I had seen the original, and I didn't see it in the theater, so that was neat to see. And then it's like, I can never go back to the original again after seeing the Broadway one, because it's like... I remember why I liked the Broadway one so much, because all that's not in there.
Yeah.
Like Robert Duvall.
What are you saying? You're not absolutely gripped when he lies about his name and lies about having a family, and it doesn't really go anywhere?
Yeah.
And he's a scab for 5 seconds, and then everything's resolved. Or Robert. No. It's
Jeremy Jordan.
Jeremy Jordan.
Yeah. It's kind of like on the fence about Robert Duvall, because it's like he is like totally bonkers and it's great, but like in the context of that story and how pretty grounded everything else is, it's like, why'd you do this?
Yeah,
Like the scene where like it's like, look at all these kids screaming, and then he goes out for 1 second, it's like, no, or whatever that was, whatever he does in that scene.
It's also like a real life example of that version. It's like Jeremy Jordan can play American Psycho, but Christian Bale cannot play Newsy.
Yeah. Jeremy Jordan could do
Patrick Bateman.
Yeah.
And Christian Bale, he could not do Blake.
Someone, I think I shared this in the Facebook group. You might have seen it, but someone tweeted, Steve Hillenburg could have done Psycho, but Alfred Hitchcock couldn't have done the gorilla episode of SpongeBob. Where we're whatever.
Could Hillenburg have hosted the Psycho trailer the same way Hitchcock did?
could he have done Learn the Secrets of the $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman?
And the Bionic Woman.
Whenever I get in the weeds on something, I try and reel it back, and I can't remember.
Dead Man's Pier is usually the best house at Halloween Horror Nights Orlando, apparently.
What I was going to get to with this is just on a technical level, that's the one I like, because the way they did it was, like most mazes, there'll be like maybe a facade at the beginning, then you're just going through the rooms, and sometimes a room will repeat with like, you get, I'm making some kind of sense, right?
Yeah.
But the Dead Man's Pier it was all like one thing. There was continuity with it. Like there'd be a facade, then you go in, and it's like kind of like a bar or like a pub, and then you walk out, and then you're like in another part of this village, and there are points where you see like the back side of something, and you can still see parts of the set.
So it's not like you're going through like a whole story or anything, and it's not as disjointed as like most mazes would be at Halloween Horror Nights.
Right, I mean, and there's something of a story, but it's like,
it feels more like you're actually walking through a town as opposed to, scenes in a town, like going from one scene to a next.
Right.
Which is something Knott's does a lot with a lot of their mazes, is like using the space that way. The way how, like, if you're paying attention in like, say, Dark Ride, for instance, you can actually track the path of the ride that you're walking through, or like how in Origins, like the bit where you're walking on the porch through the different bits of Calico. And then they still have, the scene and story elements, but they use the space as such.
Yeah. So it's like, and that was, because I can't think of another maze I've ever done that did that. But going from, like, there's the Halloween maze this year where there'll be a part where you have the giant facade of, like, the Laurie Strode house, and then you go in, and then there'll just be the one room you're supposed to be in, then the next room you're supposed to be in, and logically none of it makes sense, which is fine. Like, it's a maze, it's a haunted house. But to go into one where it's the sound stage, it's one of the mazes that's on one of the actual sound stages here, and just to see the pirate ship off in the distance, and then you're walking to a pub, and just to go through all that, I thought that was really cool.
Wait, you can press the buttons in Waxworks? I'm reading Casey's comment right now, how in Waxworks they have red buttons that you push, and they have audio plays of the exhibits. You can push those?
What is Waxworks? Is that...
So Waxworks is a maze over at Knott's. It's basically like this madman who has like a house of like a wax museum. Is
a madman who in the Q video is played by friend to all Chris Nevergall.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Played by Tiny himself.
When I was walking through the maze this year, we get to the one scene where it's like the mad doctor, and
Bye.
Bye, Allie.
Everyone says bye, Allie.
Anyway, so there's a scene where you're with the mad doctor and he's got like the wax molds and he's trying to bid you in. And like I do this thing where if I'm scared, I will like try to quip when I'm not screaming my head off. Dave, I think you're well aware of it. Anyway, so like he's trying the bad doctor's trying to scare me, and I'm like, have you considered making candles? And he's like, no, I'd rather make wax human beings. This is much more fun. It's very like you could cure cancer, but I don't want to cure cancer. I want to make dinosaurs. It's very much that energy, and I appreciated it.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So
when you can get a character riffing, it's usually a good time.
Oh yeah. There was one that gave me a present in for Forsaken. We're switching over to Knots because Knots was a good time. Scary Farm was a really great time. Sorry, Ryan.
I mean, this is also the
general spoopiness.
So.
But yeah, there's a scare zone in Knots called Forsaken Lake. And it's all about like this cult, this like old 19th century cult that's like obsessed with like burying people and like sacrificing people to like, I think that's the story, right?
It's something like that. It's
something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, this one character comes up to me and, you know, I get scared. I can't remember what exactly I say. I either scream or I say hello. And he's like, oh, you know my name. I'm like, yes. Like, oh, well, if you know my name, I have to give you a present. I'm like, okay. Don't put the clown on, though.
No clown.
Me.
And, okay, so he had...
Okay.
It wasn't the clown.
It was not the clown. Right. Yeah, so, anyway, yes, Casey knows what I'm talking about. So he's like, here, have this. And I hold out my hands, and I get a little rubber maggot.
I can't. No, my goose stuff.
And there was a point where I was there, and I was like half convinced that it was real, because like the way it was placed in my hand, it looked like it was moving, but it was like, you know, a trick of the light. So I was like, I had Dave, and then my friends Charlie and Haley were there, and they were all asking, is this real? Is that a real maggot? I'm like, no. Like looking intently at it, making sure it wasn't a real maggot.
No, that does remind. I mean, to jump back to Horror Nights really quick. One maze this year was bug themed, which was the one I was dreading the most. Because the thing is with Horror Nights for me, like I've gotten good. Like none of them really like scare me, and none of them really have like a theme that like psychologically gets to me. It's like I've gotten pretty good at like going through the maze and kind of like keeping an eye out, like there's going to be a jump here or something, just so I'm not startled. But that bug maze, it's like I do every maze every year. I'm going to have to do it, so I'll just do it. And that was the one where I'm just like, I'm just trying, like, just getting a look at things just so it's like, okay, and I'm just going through. And then when the actors are jumping out in their giant bug costumes, it's like, nah, I can't. Okay, I'm done now. Okay, not doing that.
You see,
again.
they apparently had, like, I heard that was like one of the big anticipated mazes, just because of how gross, like bug gross it was gonna be. And I saw videos of it, and it doesn't look as bad as I would have imagined. But then I also heard that, do they like have like little puffs of air that feel like things are like crawling past your feet.
Yes.
At points. No.
There was that.
Hell no.
Most of it was fine. It started off, the whole theme is it's like a 50s like pesticide company, and it's their new product. But then like the side effect is like it has like some kind of side effect, or like it turns people into it makes the bugs
bigger.
So big that it's easier to kill them, or it keeps them from breeding. I think it's like it makes them so big that it keeps them from breeding.
It's like it makes them so big so that it rapidly like increases or decreases their lifespan, because if you make them big, then that's like more energy, and then they just kind of collapse from old age quickly or something.
Right. But the first few like scares are humans as humans who were like either bitten by the bugs, or like the fumes from the pesticide has like gotten to them. And then there's the stretch of the maze where it's people in giant bug costumes and fake like whatever webs or gunk all over the walls. And then the part you're talking about where you're walking through like some kind of hallway and they're just like shooting air at you, and that was
I couldn't do that. Like I like the idea of it. I think that's a really cool idea of like, 50s, something in the 50s goes wrong. That is like one of my favorite haunted house ideas. Something in the 50s goes wrong.
We're at the point with horror where more and more people, I don't know if it's out of a feeling of necessity, but like more and more often it's like we have to set our horror stories in the past, because I think a lot of the stories people would want to tell with the ideas they have, like Black Phone. I don't know if either of you saw Black Phone, but like that's the story.
I didn't, but I heard about it. Yeah,
I've heard about it too.
It was really good. But it's the kind of thing where like you have to set it in the 70s, because if you set it now, it's like why don't they just turn on Find Friends? Why don't they just like post it on TikTok? Like what's so the fact that there's like Stranger Things and Black Phone and all of these things where it's kind of like setting it back then. So so like a giant bug thing, you would kind of I don't know if you would have to set it in the past or not.
Not necessarily. I'm sure you could do giant bugs in the present. Whether you would want to do giant bugs in the present is a thing.
It's funnier back when
technology was limited.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah.
Well, Ryan, if you were so reluctant for the giant bug house, then I'm sure you'll be happy to know that by the time you ever make it to Not Scary Farm, Pumpkin Eater will be long gone.
It
has a bug cave for reasons that I do not fully understand.
Yeah. There's also a thing where they have like this giant rat on a dolly with huge nipples.
I will say about this, the Men in Black ones are different. They're aliens. And
so alien bugs you can handle.
Yes.
Okay.
And I mean, I guess like with some of the bugs at like horror haunts, they're more cartoony to the point where it's easier for some people with bug phobias to handle. Because I could handle like the looks of the bugs in the HHN maze. Like that was fine. I got uncomfortable, but it was fine. No, not Dolly was no. We're talking about so in Pumpkin Eater. Yeah. And Pumpkin Eater, there is this rat that is pushed out on a jolly, and it's got these huge nipples. And the first time
six of them, to be exact.
Yes, these six big ass nipples. And the first time I ever went through Pumpkin Eater, I saw that and I wasn't expecting it, so I just screamed, "Red nipples!" I'm pretty sure everybody in the maze could. And I was kind of reluctant to do Pumpkin Eater again, just because I was kind of grossed out by it. But like again, it's the last year for Pumpkin Eater and Dark Ride, so I think we did Dark Ride twice, and then we had to pay our respects to Pumpkin Eater.
After this year, there will be no mazes left that I worked in.
Rip.
And I'm really sad to lose Dark Ride. I can take or leave Pumpkin Eater.
Yeah, again, I wasn't a big fan of Pumpkin Eater. Dark Ride though, Dark Ride was gorgeous. And I'm very glad that I got to go through that at least twice before its last. I even got a little pin to commemorate it. So
I was going to say Rat Nipples is the name of my 90s grunge band, so I saw. Okay, this is. This reminds me. So, I know I've mentioned this today because I think I bring it up in that Rocketeer discussion. But there was a guy I knew who played what he called new classics at a local theater, and he'll get like the film prints and play them. And Rocketeer was one of them, and it was of course the one I couldn't make. But he played Clerks, and each week he would play the trailers for the upcoming movies he was playing. And he played the Clerks trailer, and at the end they list all of like the names of the bands that were on the soundtrack. And it starts off with Soul Asylum, and it just keeps going with the names that sound more and more made up. It's like Soul Asylum, Corrosion of Conformity, and then so on and so on. And then it's like the Jesus Lizard, and then everyone in the theater started laughing, which was great. So, I guess on to Scary Farm, since we have someone here who actually works there or worked there. What's your current standing with Knott's? Because I know that you're friends of the Peanuts gang.
Yes, my current standing is I work at Knott's during the day, so I am not working Scary Farm this year because I'm getting more hours as a daytime employee, and also we are severely understaffed because a lot of our department is working Scary Farm, so I am getting great hours. And yes, I work in the characters department, so I host characters and do other things I am not allowed to discuss publicly, but I'm too tall to play any of the Peanuts characters, and that's as much as I can say. But
so what you're saying is they have you take Snoopy to the dry cleaners.
Exactly. I help Snoopy get ready, and then I stand next to him and say, "Hey kids, you want to take a picture with Snoopy?" And yeah, it's a fun job, and I am happy to do it. So yeah. In years past, I've worked Scary Farm. My first year was 2017, where I was in the Tooth Fairy maze for its final year.
So coincidentally, 2017 was also the first ever time I went to Scary Farm. So coincidence of all coincidences. However, I did no mazes that year because I was still with my ex and I was still very scared to go through any maze. I rode Ghost Rider like 3 times though, and saw the Elvira show.
Well, 2017 was my first HHN, and it was the one in Hollywood, and I haven't done one since. And like once you do it here, and you don't have to go through like a tunnel where they're blasting dubstep in your face.
So there
we
was
don't have the tunnel anymore.
No tunnel this year. There was no tunnel this year.
Then, so have they got everything more centralized now, or do they like
not really?
Not really. There is a part. There's
path
a part
around the tunnel because enough people complained about it.
So they have like the big farm mazes. They're on the Curious George parking lot, which is like behind Wizarding World, of sorts. So it's still on the upper lot. So there's no like tunnel or anything.
But
I didn't go.
Yeah, you just have to walk. Yeah,
Sorry.
You just have to walk through Hogsmeade to get to those other.
Yeah, and a very underwhelming
which is the scariest
wizard
part of all.
Yeah, the very underwhelming wizard Nazi scare zone. Because I walk through there and it's that dark little tunnel, and
Wait, have they got Harry Potter scare actors now?
Like, they've got Death Eaters.
They got the Death Eaters
moving around in the fog.
The Death Dealers.
Yeah, the Death Dealers. Voldemort into Death Dealers. I should have gotten my Ebony Raven Darkness Dementia way costume together for that. But yeah, it was like this tiny dark alley, and they like popped out at you and they were walking around, but aside from that dark alley there was nothing, and I was like, oh, is that it? It was just like, the wizard Nazis coming up and getting in my face, and then I was like,
I think they're also doing the dark mark projection mapping on the castle.
Oh yeah, I didn't see it because I was barely in that area, because when I went to Halloween Horror Nights, I had no interest in either the Scarecrow maze or the Halloween maze, so I just didn't really touch it.
I've done Horror Nights once this year so far, and I only had time for... I went with Casey, who's in the chat, and I only had time for, like, Terror Tram and 3 mazes. So I'm going back this weekend, and hopefully I get to do a couple of the other mazes, but... yeah, the only mazes I did at Horror Nights this year were the Weekend and Monsters and the Universal Horror Hotel, which I thought was really cool.
I did that twice, and that was pretty neat. So I don't know how to feel like about the entrance, because the Horror Nights Hotel is where the Walking Dead maze used to be, and
they changed very little of the beginning of it.
Yeah, so the queue just still looks like you're in the hospital, except there's like a projection of like a video playing.
Mm.
Yeah.
But the maze itself was really cool.
Oh yeah, it was very, very neat. One of my good friends, Haley, was kind of shaking her fist though, because she kind of had she had a big post on Twitter about her idea for a Halloween Horror Nights maze, which Universal Horror Hotel uses a lot of elements from. And
suspicious.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of cool things about it though, just like this dude that runs a hotel and he's killing people, and it turns out, oh, he's in a creepy cult.
Yes, my first in Orlando, Casey happened to be there with a friend of hers, and so I got to do that.
Nice.
So that was neat.
Very cool.
I'm trying to think what was 2018. I know 2017 was, they had Ash versus Evil Dead. I think the Terror Tram was like, I remember.
Terror Tram was great, by the way. Cannot recommend it enough. My favorite part of the evening, aside from the weekend maze. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
I like that part because like it was neat going up to the Psycho House and getting a picture with Norman.
Yeah.
And all that. I'm trying to think what all it was that year. I know that the Bates Motel was like the Crystal Lake Motel, and then you walk by one of the rooms, and they had like a thing where it was like one of the cots, and Jason had just like folded the person up into the cot, and so they had like someone had their head sticking out of like one part of the cot, and they had like dummy legs, and so that was neat. I can't remember what the other ones were. I think it was like, I think one of the mazes was like a general icons of horror, and it was like Jason, and I don't know if they did Freddy, and there might have been Michael Myers, or that might have been its own maze. I can't remember much else, and I can't remember a lot about 2018. I think 2018 might have been their first year doing Stranger Things. Does that sound right? Dave, anybody?
I didn't go to
Sounds
any
right.
haunts in 2018 because 2018 was not necessarily the best year. So
I'm trying to remember 2018.
I
don't think I went.
I think it would have to have been because 2019 they did Stranger Things again, and they like combined seasons 2 and 3 together that year, I think. So I think 2018 would have had to have been.
it was the Titans of Horror Terror Tram hosted by Chucky.
Yes,
Okay.
I remember Chucky hosting.
And was 2018 the year they did The Shining?
It might have been for you. I think for us it was Poltergeist. I remember getting now that I'm remembering Poltergeist now.
Because there were a couple of years I didn't end up going just because I was so busy working Scary Farm, and I just watched them all on YouTube. 2019, I went here in Hollywood, and that was Ghostbusters and everything, and that was a solid year.
That's my favorite year of the ones I've done. That's my favorite year so far because it was Ghostbusters, Killer Clowns. It was the second year of Stranger Things, and I think that was the first year that they did like revamped Universal Monsters. Because I think 2019 was just a general Universal Monsters maze, and then 2020, 2021 was the Bride, and then this year is Legends Collide. So.
Yeah.
So that was a good year, 2019.
I was really mad at myself for not going to HHN in 2019 because that Ghostbusters maze looked amazing. But it was, I had a lot going on that year, so yeah.
I feel like on this coast they had Ghostbusters at Universal in the 90s. And I was wondering doing the maze how much, if there was anything they still had in storage that they were able to pull out. And there was one Stay Puffed head in the maze that I looked at and I wondered could they have kept that all those years and reused that, or would that have been?
I'm not too sure. It would kind of depend on what they would have used it for and, like, I guess the mechanics of it.
Right, because it wasn't it wasn't animated, and it would have been, I don't know. That's just whatever. I'm not going to speculate on that too much. I tried. Okay.
I will say, I enjoyed Scary Farm just a little bit more than I enjoyed HHN. Mostly because with HHN haunts and stuff, there was a lot of like loud noises and stuff, and I wasn't necessarily prepared for that. So I think next time I gotta bring myself some noise canceling headphones and wear them around HHN. Scary Farm, it's more theatrical. It's more. You get a lot more. You have a lot more fun with the people that work it. Like you have the possibility of having a lot more fun. I think with HHN, there's a little more rigor to everything that they do. But
yeah, that is kind of the HHN move. Is flashing light and loud noise during a pop out, and it's very much like hit your cue and do your cue.
Yeah.
Whereas Scary Farm is a lot looser and a lot more, Knott's is all about the personal interaction and their entertainment.
Right.
So
yeah.
Which as a performer for Knott's is a blessing and a curse, because I have been given characters where I had no idea what to do with them. And it's like I'm in a room where it's like, well, there's nowhere to hide here. There's like nothing in the space to really use, and I can't like growl louder than the ambient like audio in the room. So I guess I'll just keep trying things until something works.
So you both mentioned there have been like repeat mazes. Is that
for Knott's?
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, Knott's I think operates on kind of a cycle of they'll repeat mazes. Like they'll have the same maze for like 5 years or so, and then cart it off, because Dark Ride has been around since 2017, because Dark Ride was like the big new one in 2017, and then it's now in its final season this year. So
yeah, 5 years is the usual run for a maze at Knott's. Sometimes if it's really popular, I think Paranormal Inc. ran 7 years.
That was like a really, really popular one.
And that ended last year and was replaced by Bloodline, which I was underwhelmed by.
I didn't do Bloodline, not because I was scared, but because it was a shooty maze. and I don't like doing shooting mazes because it requires me to focus on stuff, and I can't give that level of commitment. And it sucks because it's vampire themed. It's got vampires in it and stuff, and that is like right up my alley because I love vampires. And you give me vampires, but then you have to give me a gun.
A gun, the weapon that famously kills vampires.
I mean, but isn't that kind of a thing though? Like silver, or is that werewolves?
It's
Silver
more
bullet.
It's werewolves. Vampires are the
Okay.
stake to the heart.
Okay.
The wooden
I can't
stake,
keep
not
up
the
with the
meaty
rules.
stake.
I mean, they're not real. I'm never going to
I
have
mean,
to kill one. What
Ebony,
difference does it make?
Ebony Raven Darkness Dementia Way tried to kill herself with a meat steak at one point, but it didn't really work. I almost dragged a steak.
Look, as far as we know, the author of that Harry Potter story is not as bad as the author of the canon Harry Potter
You're right.
story, so
And we don't know what Tara Gillespie is doing or who she really even is, because a lot of people have come forward saying, yes, I'm Tara Gillespie, I wrote My Immortal, but none of them can really prove it. And so, like, I've noticed this cycle, like, every couple years or so, somebody comes forward and was like, yes, I'm Tara Gillespie, I wrote this, I'm ashamed of it now. But then it gets disproven, and then we go back in. And then it's just a cycle.
So Tara Gillespie is the Spartacus of our generation.
Yeah.
I'm Tara, and so's my wife.
I was getting ready to say it. God damn it.
Beat you to it.
That's something with J. Rowles is I've like Escape from Green Guts is like one of my favorite rides, and the last few years it's just like I think last year it was at HHN and I walked past the entrance to Diagon Alley and I was like, I don't know. They're laughing. Okay. But they like I was thinking, do I want to go in? Do I want to give it a shot this time? And I'm like, nah. I just haven't been back in there. It's like it's just like as long as that woman's around, it's just like any interest in anything associated with it's like no.
Yeah. I've only ridden Forbidden Journey like once in my life, and like it was fun. It was great, but the last couple times I've been to Universal, I've just never have felt the need to ride it ever again. Just because, I mean, obviously for that reason, but also just they have spiders. And I don't like the spiders in that ride. That was not fun.
Forbidden Journey is the one I've not done too often because the first time I did it was story time. I can't think of any way to do this without going into a story. So the first time,
let's do it.
My family, I ever went to Orlando. My family went to Orlando was 2015, and so our first day was Disney. It was like, okay, Ryan and Katie, my sister, they really want to do Universal because Katie's really into Harry Potter, and Ryan's been begging his entire life for us to do this, and we waited till almost everything he ever wanted to do was closed, but we'll finally do it now. So we went, and it was like, but we want to do one day at Disney. And it's like, oh, we'll do Magic Kingdom, obviously. So we did that, and then and we knocked out a bunch. Like my first time at any theme park like that was that September before when I came out there and spent some time out there, and we did a few days at Disneyland. And I learned a lot from Dave and everyone, like people like collecting everyone's fast passes back when fast pass was
back when that was how it worked.
Like everyone took the fast passes, like, okay, go, and we'll come up with a plan, and we'll get these now and then these later. And so when we got there, Florida at the time did it where you could get like 3 at the start of the day, and then throughout the day, if there were any left, you could get another. And they had the kiosk, so you didn't have to go to the ride itself to get the fast pass. So we booked up 3, and then we did that, and we were able to do a few other things. And so for the day was going pretty smoothly. We were getting a lot done. And then at one point, when it came time to eat, that was when the other people in the family were just like, "Oh, well, I don't really care. What would you like? Well, what would you like? I mean, it doesn't really matter to me." And it's like, can we? There are a few more things to do, and it's going to take a while, and that took a little too long. And I realized it's like, okay, are we going to be spinning wheels a whole bunch? Okay. So the next day we did Universal, and as soon as we got parked, it was like, my sister was flying out halfway through the day, so I didn't want to waste time. So it's like, okay, we're hauling ass to. I think first thing we did was Men in Black, and then we went to Diagon Alley, and then the day after that. We did not get to do Forbidden Journey the day before, and so I went in, and it's like, okay, I'm going to go and get some things done. So I went in and did Forbidden Journey, and that kind of messed me up right away. And it depending on the ride and depending on, I guess, where my head's at, if I've eaten, how much I've eaten, what all I've ridden, has an effect whether or not I'm going to have motion sickness. So... do Forbidden Journey, and I'm already kind of... Maybe it's just because it was my first time. I'm like, maybe... And then other members of the family caught up, and it's like they're ready to do it. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, I'll try it again. Maybe it'll be fine. I get off the ride, and then they have to let me into their emergency, like, room off to the side. I didn't wind up actually doing anything, but I was, like, so, like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Something's going to happen. And nothing did, but since then, I'm very careful with Forbidden Journey. Like, pace myself. Like, maybe I'll give it a shot. And then, but I mean, since recent developments, I've had no interest. Regardless.
The only time I've ever done Forbidden Journey was the first ever time I went to Universal Studios during the day, not Halloween Horror Nights related, just first time ever going to Universal Studios during the day because my family, my mom, my stepdad, and my brother we were in LA for something, and my mom was like, "Oh, let's try this," and I was like, "Heck yeah, I'm excited." And we were just really psyched for the Harry Potter one, FJ, and we got off it pretty okay. I just remember being like really scared during like the spiders and the Dementors because those Dementors were freaking intense. But yeah, it was kind of a chill day. We were able to like knock out a lot of stuff without any fast passes or anything. So that was cool.
I did want to ask about Scary Farm. So they've got repeats. Do they do like every year there's at least something new, or do they kind of like do a new one and then see how it goes down and then that comes back, or like what's the thinking?
Usually,
Scary Farm.
Usually every year there's 2 new mazes. Usually, last year there was only 1 new maze because there was a lumber shortage.
And I mean, probably other things going on in the world probably aggravated that too. What was the new maze last year? I can't remember what it was.
Mesmer was new.
Oh yeah, Mesmer! That's my favorite one.
The new maze was COVID surprise.
Yes, exactly. Well, and also last year they had a lot of like stage shows throughout the park, and they advertised none of them. But I think they were like bumping up that because like it was something they could provide when they didn't have 2 new mazes to launch. But and then usually on returning mazes, there's often some element of plus up or some element of change from year to year on a returning maze. And then even when the set is exactly the same, like because the Scary Farm experience is so performer driven, you know, if you go through a maze next year, it's going to have mostly a different cast than it had last year. So they're all going to be bringing something different to the table. And some things get changed in a maze from year to year. Sometimes because there's a plus up. Sometimes because something's not working in the way it used to be. For instance, Mesmer last year had this like pre-show scene
that we
like
kept
this...
missing. I kept I missed it because I guess they weren't doing it like late at night by the time we went through Mesmer, but they got rid of it.
Yeah, they got rid of it for this year, and instead it's just like a maze room in there. And I don't know if it's like the effect didn't work anymore or that.
I think it might have been like probably like a crowd control issue because it is like the very first scene, and it's a tiny ass room if you take a look at it.
Honestly, probably.
Yeah.
So, like things change from year to year on Scary Farm, but you still get the opportunity to, like, for most mazes, like, if you love this maze, as long as it's not its final year, you'll get to do it again. And my understanding is that Six Flags works similarly because I actually did Six Flags Fright Fest this year.
And
Thank you
it
for
apparently...
reminding me, 'cause I was going to let you go into
And it
that.
apparently is not as bad as you thought, because I'm kind of interested in it.
It was much better than I expected it to be, but I was also going in with the baseline expectation of everything Magic Mountain touches turns to shit. So like, it greatly exceeded my expectations. I don't know if I recommend it to people who aren't already used to the baseline Magic Mountain experience, but because part of the thing is like, if you have a Magic Mountain pass already, to get the wristband to go through the mazes is only $30, which is like cheaper than any other Halloween event, but there's also only 6 mazes. So it's a little, you get what you pay for. Like, and honestly, so like, Six Flags famously doesn't put money into anything.
Of course not.
So like, the scare zones are really sparse, but the performers in the scare zones are all like fucking top notch.
Oh,
and,
good.
Like, I was shocked at how good some of these performers. So they have a scare zone that is called the Devil's Triangle, and it's like a sort of like sunken pirate ship sort of.
Aw, that's
zone.
cute.
And drawing a little bit from the depths at Not Scary Farm, but not an exact ripoff. And so they had this pirate captain, this like zombie pirate captain character, whose voice he was kind of doing like kind of an off-brand Jack Sparrow character, but he was like he had these like sparkers in his hands where he was like making flames happen and stuff.
Oh, I love that.
It was really cool. But the best thing I saw was like, he was being a pirate zombie, but then this like little girl just came up to him and gave him a hug and was just like, I'm a big fan of pirates. And he like knelt down with this girl and started like taking her under his wing in like this sort of Long John Silver, Jim Hawkins sort of way. And it was the most wholesome thing I've ever seen at a Six Flags, bar none.
My heart.
It was so fucking cute.
That is adorable.
Like, I loved it so much. They did another scare zone that was clearly, another scare zone that was apparently new this year, that was clearly trying to cash in, or clearly taking inspiration from Knott's Carnival, because this one was Carniv Hell, which was a much clunkier pun.
They kept the V in there? It was Carniv Hell?
Yes.
Not Carna Hell.
Yeah.
But how do you mess that up? Why would you keep the V in there?
Just a little too clunky.
It's right there.
And this was basically like a third of Bugs Bunny World became this scare zone, so it's a very small space. Not a lot of decoration, but again, like the performers in it were just so good. Like there was this like bird lady monster who was squawking and squeaking like with really good vocal performance, but also was like posing for pictures with people. But she was like a contortionist, so she was like bending, like doing a back bend in the photos and like being upside down in the photos.
Wow.
With people. It's like there are some really good performers in the scare zones at Six Flags. And I talked about, I'll be talking about this. I think next week's episode of my Patreon podcast will be going into this as I explain all this to Allie.
Yes.
But it's
Patreon.com/Doggins.
I'm a $3 patron, so I can vouch this is a good podcast, so you should listen to it. You're welcome.
I'm ashamed to say I have not kept up with it as much as I had been.
You mean you're not at home with the Dogginses? How dare you?
I live in the closet. I live in the cupboard.
I can always tell when you've caught up with it because you usually text me about the episode you just heard.
Because I was listening to it every week. Because when COVID hit, I mean, obviously, like, there's nothing coming out. But that was also the time, like, I was going on walks and lost a bunch of weight.
Sure.
And so I was listening to a bunch of podcasts. So I was listening to, like, Tony's show a lot, and like the Disney World like themed YouTube channels, listening to their stuff a lot, and then I was listening to your and Allie's show a lot, and then I lost all of the weight, and then I'm starting to work a lot more, and then it's like I don't have time to listen to things. So
yeah, it's podcast listening. Like there are some jobs that you can do it during, and most you can't.
Right.
That's just my commute, though.
Well, I mean, I will say, I mean, the experience is good. I was in a head-on collision before, like 2 weeks before my trip, and so had to get a new car. But it has an auxiliary port, so I could have died in a car crash, but on the plus side, I can listen to podcasts as I drive now.
So give and take. I'm glad you're okay.
Yeah, I was like, damn.
Oh no one got hurt. It was like
good.
It was like they hit like it's like our passenger side lights hit each other like a little bit, so it wasn't like we were like directly head on and then we were trapped inside the car and had to be thank you. That we had to be like sawed out the car, but it was so bad that we had to throw that other car away. But if it's like a topic like the Peanuts, when it's like we're going to go through all the Peanut specials that are not the big ones that apparently are not going to be played on television anymore. That's
the thing. That's the thing is my podcast is so unfocused that I fully expect people to only tune into the topics that interest them.
Well, I mean, I was listening to it every week because it's just nice listening to you two talk because you two are such a precious couple, and the discussions are really nice. But
you have
when
soothing
I lose
voices.
Yes, it's that.
Why? Thank you.
No, watch it. But as soon as it's like, the Peanut specials, that's when my ears perked up. It's like, I know some of those. I had some of those, so.
You reminded me about one that I had forgotten about.
The really depressing one where he's trying to find the girl from the TV.
Someday you'll find her, Charlie Brown.
Yeah, that one always got to me. That's the thing with Charlie Brown. Is like there are some that. I mean, I can't really do anything Peanuts now. Just I won't get in the weeds on that, but for personal reasons. But when I was younger and there were like a few of them that would get really like kind of dour. I might be too harsh a word, or it might be just the right word. And that was one of them. Snoopy Come Home was another one. That was one where I couldn't. I had a hard time watching that. But but then there'll be the weird NFL tie-in video where like Sure, they're in the Super Bowl or the Sugar Bowl or whatever it was called.
Big game, Charlie Brown.
No, this was officially licensed because I remember on the tape it had, like, somewhere on the box it had, like, the NFL logo and then I think the Shell gas station logo, because they might have sold it exclusively there, or they were an official sponsor of the Super Bowl or something. Now, Dave, with working with the Peanuts characters, was that upon request or was that just a huge, just serendipity?
It just worked out nice. Well, it basically was. I had gone through several other auditions for other entertainment roles at Knott's, and had not landed the others. But I got the call that there was a position I qualify for here, and went out for that and ended up landing it, and it worked out nicely that I get to hang out with Snoopy and Charlie Brown, and I tweeted about this when it happened, but sometimes I'm like in the Camp Snoopy meet and greet area. There's the queue leading up to where you can take pictures with everyone. So I was there as one of the hosts when Charlie Brown and Linus were out, and Linus has his blanket. Charlie Brown is there, and I'm talking to some kids in line. I'm just like, "Hey, you excited to see Charlie Brown?" And this little boy's like, "Yeah." Is Charlie Brown the one holding the towel?
No.
Oh man.
So
good grief.
Good grief indeed.
But
yeah, so so I'm still with the Knott's organization, just not with the scary part of it, which meant I got to visit Scary Farm as a guest this year, and it was a nice change of pace, and I get to go to bed at a reasonable hour most nights.
Yeah, I can imagine that was like that can like fuck with your sleep schedule a lot.
Very, very much so. Last year it was a lot of like, I'm getting home and I'm, trying my hardest not to wake Allie when I get home.
There was that one time. Last year when I went to visit Scary Farm, I think like we all got together at Denny's, and I didn't get back to my hotel until like nearly 5 in the fucking morning.
There are times like that. It was actually the thing that worked out nicely about it the first year I did Scary Farm was when Allie and I were just starting to talk about dating, but she was still on the East Coast and she was getting up early for her job. So it's like I'm getting home late and she's getting up early. It's like, hey, we can chat on the phone during our commutes
now.
And that's when your heart gets so jet lagged.
Exactly.
Anyone? Okay.
What were we talking about?
Six
I was
Flags.
talking about Six. Okay, so going to Six Flags
Spoopy Mountain.
Yes, like I said, better than I expected it to be. But again, that's like if you aren't used to the normal Six Flags level of crap, then it might be underwhelming. But the performances are all like the performers in the scare zones are all very good. The performers in the mazes were mostly very good. Some of them were just kind of just like popping out and going, ah, and popping back in. So, but I assume as little direction as we sometimes got in mazes at Scary Farm, I assume they're getting even less. So I don't blame the performers.
Oh yeah.
I don't blame the performers. Everybody at Six Flags is trying their hardest, except for management.
No, I liked Six Flags the time I was out there, but that was 5 years ago, so I have no idea if it's gone further down the toilet or if I just went in with like no expectations and I was like, ah.
I have never been to Six Flags, so I have no real concept of what it is, other than it's the absolute worst, except for the Justice League shooty ride.
Yes, the Justice League ride.
I was going to ask about that real quick because I feel like someone might have been Charlie or Haley, I think when I was out there, it had just opened that year or the year before at Magic Mountain. And I think someone had mentioned in the years since they have not maintained it as well as they probably should. Is that correct?
That's generally true of everything at Six Flags.
Okay.
I haven't been on that ride in a couple of months, but last time I rode it, it was still pretty good.
Okay.
I know that they turned off the Cyborg pre-show during COVID.
During COVID, yes.
Yeah, because he was just kind of standing there, just like frozen. It's kind of sad.
At like the early stages of reopening, when they were like trying not to keep anyone gathered in a single space for too long, they weren't running the pre-shows, so you were just like moving through as quickly as possible. Since then, the pre-shows have been up and running again, and
good.
Cyborg is actually talking and not just sort of loitering.
Not just like standing there.
Cyborg-erling?
Huh.
Going to Price Fest was my first time going back to Six Flags since they opened the new Wonder Woman coaster. I haven't ridden the coaster yet, but they have kind of spruced up the whole DC area around the coaster, and it's much shinier now, and they kind of cleared out a lot of the like snack stands that were there to make it much more of an open space.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, it's a nice little area now. They gave Batman the Ride a shiny new sign. I don't know if they've changed anything in the queue, but the exterior, they gave it a new sign, and they put a new Batmobile over there by the Batman entrance.
Now, is it new as it's the Burton one, but a new one, or is it just just some other Batmobile?
It looked like a different design that was evocative of the Burton one, but it was definitely not the same Burton Batmobile that used to be in that area. But it looked kind of, I don't know if it was a specific pre-existing design, but the best way I can describe it is, did you ever see that statue they had in Star Wars Launch Bay that was specifically a statue of the Kenner Darth Vader action figure?
Yes.
You know how that one kind of had like slightly exaggerated proportions? Think that, but for the Batmobile.
Interesting.
I'm gonna have to look that up because, but it wasn't the animated series one, because those two are like, because the animated series is basically the Burton one, but with like the little shield part at the front, like the designs are very similar.
It wasn't the animated series one, and like probably someone could look at it and know specifically, oh, this is specifically this Batmobile design. All I could tell was like, oh, that's different than the one that used to be in this area. But yeah, as of right now, everything in that area got a fresh coat of paint, and I know that that's the last fresh coat of paint anything will get in that area until they renovate the whole thing again, because Six Flags does not really do touch-ups like that.
Well,
I liked Batman the Ride because it was almost, I think it might be almost exactly the same track system as a thing at Carowinds they have called Afterburn, which used to be Top Gun. But since that's no longer branded as Top Gun and Batman's actually branded to a thing I recognize, then obviously I prefer Batman.
I hate to cut this off,
no.
but I gotta go to bed. I have to get up for work I work at 8 in the morning. The thralls and wonders of working in public education, I know. But yeah, I gotta start heading to bed and all that fun stuff. So this is where I will leave you, gentlemen.
All right. Well,
have a good night, dear friend.
Alrighty, good night. It was good talking to y'all.
Thanks for being a part
I
of
miss
this.
you and all that fun stuff. Have fun. Be safe. Wear a seatbelt. Don't do drugs. All that cool stuff. All right. Bye.
All right, see ya.
Bye.
So, with the Six Flags thing, so you said this is the first year you've actually gone and done it. I'm trying to think.
It's the first year that I've done any mazes at Fright Fest. There was one year before that I was in the park when Fright Fest started, but I didn't really like experience Fright Fest.
Okay.
That was in, I think, 2016, because that was the year that the DC Universe area was the Suicide Squad.
I was going to ask about that because I think in 2017, because the first 2 times I went out there was September 2015 and 2017, and so they would have already started Halloween. And I feel like we went to Six Flags, and it was a slow day. It was during the day, and I remember there being like Suicide Squad stuff up during the day for that. They haven't done anything with that for like Birds of Prey or the new Suicide Squad, like for Halloween, have they?
No, so the scare zone that's in DC Universe this year is called City Under Siege, and it's just a bunch of evil clowns that do not seem to be any specific DC characters. So, like, but they're kind of, they feel kind of like a Joker gang, but I don't think they're based on any specific characters.
When you say management doesn't care, it's like you've got the license, and it's like, for one, like the couple of things you could go with there, like there are 2 things that come to mind, like the Joker movie, where the whole idea is that like it's influenced the whole city, and you've got the mask and the design of the makeup, and then also Batman Beyond, where you've got like a gang themed after the Joker that you could have gone with.
I was wondering, and I don't know, like this was all speculation on my part, but I was wondering if maybe like they have to pay extra to do like doing a scare zone counts as doing another attraction, and you've got to like pay an additional royalty or something. So like maybe it was worth doing for Suicide Squad, but now they're just like, well, if we just make it kind of DC but not explicitly DC, then like whatever their contract is, I don't know. I all I can do is, because like there was that one year that on the Warner Brothers lot they were doing a Halloween event, and they had an Arkham Asylum maze there, on the Warner lot, and I'm wondering if like because they were doing a DC Halloween thing there, that somehow stripped Six Flags of its license to use DC elements in a Halloween thing.
How often has Warner Brothers done that? Because that reminded me of something else, because it's like, I know, because that was the thing, is like you would have thought like that HHN might have scooped up the license for it when it happened, but instead Warner Brothers decided, no, we're going to do our own thing for 1 or 2 years. Was it just 1 year, or did they do it a couple times?
I don't remember. It might have been a couple times, but it might have just been the once. History is a blur to me at this point.
Yes. Because I know that, because I haven't heard of them doing anything else since whenever that was. And last year, Horror Nights did Beetlejuice, and so obviously they don't care. But that's something that you mentioned, that I wonder about how these licenses work, is if you've got the license for something, it's every time you do something new, like its own fee, its own negotiation, or does just having the license give you carte blanche, or does it just depend on what you sign? Because isn't it like they can't really do anything with Simpsons without approval or without like a new thing, and it might be the same with Marvel, and that's why there hasn't really been anything new with either of those?
Yeah. Like I think with, because like I think with Marvel Superhero Island, a rumor I heard is that part of the contract involves they need to keep the attractions like maintained, which was part of how even after the Disney buyout they did that whole reanimation of all the scenes on the Spider-Man ride.
And they just a couple of years ago replaced all the track on Hulk as
well.
Exactly.
So it's but I think if they were to introduce a new attraction, they'd have to renegotiate the contract for that, I think. And I also know there was like one year, the first time they did Horror Nights in Islands of Adventure, they had a Marvel themed scare zone.
Now, I took a picture of this. So they've got in City Walk the former studio store. They moved the main studio store to a larger building, closer to. I don't know if it was open when you lived out here, but the whatever the NBC Sports Grill, like the last building before the walkway to the Studios Park. So the store, the new studio store, is kind of right by that, and then in the old studio store space is what they call the Legacy Store, and they've dug out a bunch of props and like maquettes and memorabilia from like attractions throughout the years, and have decorated the shop, and it kind of focuses on like the retro merch and the Back to the Future merch and E.T. and all of that. And they've got video screens. It's funny, they've got video screens where it's obvious that whoever compiled the footage went to YouTube and ripped the John Forsythe souvenir videos to put up on the video screens. But they don't play the whole thing. It's like it'll be like a crate. It'll be like the picture of a crate, and it would move, and it'll adjust, and they'll have like pictures of like old publicity photos, or like scans of old like guide maps, and then it'll change, and then there'll be like a clip art TV screen, and then the screen will be playing like an old attraction video, and it's clearly from those souvenir videos, and it looks like they were taken from YouTube.
Finish your thought. I'm going to put a pin in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I bring up that store because I didn't notice it till last night. They've got around the back side of one of the displays, it got broken up a like kind of a timeline of the resort. They give special accommodations to A Day in the Park with Barney, obviously, because that's a milestone. But I'm trying to see, and they listed what they turned each. Of course they did. They say what they for the year that they did HHN and Islands of Adventure, what they called each island that they themed it to. Like Seuss Landing was Booville, obviously, and then Jurassic Park was JP Extinction. So so the DC area at Six Flags is now called City Under Siege. The Marvel area during Horror Nights was Island Under Siege.
Because that's right. It was, wasn't it?
What? Of course. Why wouldn't it be?
When it's a superhero-themed area, it's under siege. That's all it can be.
Now I will say, when you said it was called City Under Siege and it was in the DC area, my thought was if they had actually made it DC themed, why wouldn't they have called it No Man's Land? Like that would have been the more appropriate tie-in, but it's not actually DC themed, so it doesn't really matter either way.
Yeah, so the other thing the Scare Zone has is a couple of cop cars and like a taxi that are like wrecked, strewed about, that all say Midway City on them. So I think those are left over from the Suicide Squad Scare Zone.
Right, because yeah.
So the thought I was going to have regarding the clips that were clearly just taken from the John Forsythe videos. So on one of the Disneyland history DVDs, I think it's Disneyland Imagineering the Magic, there's a bit where like Tony Baxter is talking about Fantasyland. He's talking about like, well, on opening day, you know, they had Snow White, they had Peter Pan, they had Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, they had, and as he's listing them, you know, it's cutting to B-roll for all of them. But when it cuts to the B-roll for Mr. Toad, I was able to recognize, oh, this is the shot from the opening day special when Art Linkletter lost his microphone. This is basically, like, you don't see Art Linkletter because this is basically starting from the frame where he goes inside the Mr. Toad ride and cutting it off right before the frame where he comes back out. And it's just this disastrous moment of Linkletter losing his microphone is now just some editor was like, well, I can use that part for B-roll.
It's like when they redid the opening of MASH after Gary Berghoff
Yeah,
left,
after
and they it's like, okay, how do we make sure his shoulder is not in frame? Okay, we're good.
Just zoom around Gary Berghoff's head somehow.
Oh man. What gets me is like is when companies, whether it's something where they own the footage or it's a like some kind of professional operation, like it's like, let's say GQ Online or Hollywood Reporter Online or something like that, where you could easily get to the footage you need, especially if you own the material. Like if it's Universal, they should have those videos somewhere in their archive. But these companies, it's like, we're just going to go to YouTube. It's 360p. It's fine. Who's going to care? And then, I mean, I can't speak for you, but for someone that's like me, it's like, oh no, I know the video you got that from.
Yeah.
I see you.
Yes, I have poured over that exact same B-roll. I have used that clip, just ripped it from YouTube, but I don't have access to the actual archives.
You're doing just as good a job as the company itself. Like
exactly.
I am doing. You can say that.
Well, that's like when I did Horror Nights a few years ago. I think 2016. The first time they did The Purge as the Terror Tram theme, and I'm in the queue for the Terror Tram. And, like, they're doing all the Q videos that are, like, commercials for, like, celebrate Purge Night from this tram party or whatever. And all the fake commercials, the music is just, like, the free music that comes with GarageBand or, like, with iMovie, like the Apple loops that come free with a MacBook. And they're just using that royalty-free music. And I'm like, yeah, because it's not like there are any movie-making professionals on this property.
Is that because that's like not I don't keep saying these things like you'd have the answer, but it's just something I think about. It's like when you like copyright loss sometimes, it's like there are certain things that are cut and dry, and it's like, of course you want to compensate like the right people for their work and sort out the legalities, but there are some things where it's like, how many times do you have to like litigate these things? Because it's like, okay, well, Universal owns the movies The Purge. Surely they would own the score for The Purge? Do you have to... is that a different set? Okay, well, we don't want to pay Joe Schmo composer to use it in our thing. Again, it's The Purge, which isn't really known for its music, I guess, so no one's going to care?
But it's like, it would have taken an hour to compose a new, like, jingle or whatever.
Right.
Like, to do something that everyone with a MacBook wouldn't immediately recognize.
I guess they're hoping that it's like, oh, we got younger people now, and the GarageBand presets are not as much of a thing.
I don't know. And it's also not like it's an actual complaint. It was just... It just surprised me.
Right. Because some of those, like, I remember, like, that period in time when that was, like, even, it might have been, there's one, like, GarageBand preset. It's, like, the classic rock themed one that I remember, like Rhett and Link did a video series where that was the theme music of it. I don't know if you watched them or
was it
watched
the one
them
where they
back
were, like, on the stakeout, like Steven and Roach or whatever it was called?
Maybe. It might have been something where they were on the road. It might have been the Alka-Seltzer thing or something else.
Oh, yeah, the Alka-Seltzer Great American Road Trip.
And I know Red Letter Media used it for something, and a few other people have used it for something. But there was a few years where, like, no one... Like, I mean, if you were, like, a no-budget, like, YouTuber, like, obviously you used what you could use, but it was, like, a point where, like, no one cares. Like, yeah, we're going to use... Everyone uses that clip. We're going to... we need something that sounds like that. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the one other thing, I guess I can try and wind this down around 2 hours. But I guess the one other thing is you haven't done a Disney Halloween thing, have you?
I haven't done any of the separately ticketed Disney Halloween events because I can't really justify well, yeah, and it's like the character experiences they have at Oogie Boogie Bash do look really cool, but I cannot justify budgeting money to pay to go to a place that I already have an annual pass to unless there's like a new attraction that I can't do otherwise. So like I can rationalize paying for Horror Nights because mazes are themed attractions and I can't do the mazes if I don't pay for Horror Nights. But with Disneyland, it's like the rides I can do just with my magic key. So like as cool as the character things look, I just can't rationalize it unless there's an actual themed attraction that I can't do otherwise. So I haven't done the Disney things.
And there's not much else to it other than that. And I ask because I really don't know, like, because there are exclusive characters, and then some of them have like a dance party or something, maybe, and then
there's like
kids are encouraged to wear costumes. I think.
Yeah, I think they do like trick or treating, which Knott's does during the day for free for pass holders. I think there's a parade that I hear is pretty cool, but I'm not a parade guy.
Right.
And yeah, like everything about it all seems cool. It just doesn't seem like enough to get me to pay extra money to go to a place that I could go to tomorrow if I wanted to.
Right. Because I mean, because obviously it works for Disney. They don't need to reinvent the wheel because those things are popular. But it does seem like something where they could probably find a way to do some kind of haunted house or maze without it being a jump scare one, where it's more or less like aesthetic and it's still safe for kids, and you could just have like characters be in there like waving at you, but have it be something a little bit more.
Yeah, that's and I did an Armchair Imagineering video a few years ago pitching like traditional Halloween mazes for Disney, which they'll never do. But yeah, it seems like you could have a junior version of a Halloween spooky experience for kids, where it's not about jump scares, but it is that kind of themed maze environment. And maybe that's kind of what they do with the Redwood Creek Challenge Trail during Oogie Boogie Bash. I'm not fully sure.
Okay, so they do. Okay, I totally forgot that was even.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. DCA 1.0. Of course, you forget that was there. But I was trying to get somewhere with that. But I mean, yeah, I think I was thinking like where would they even put it? Because in the case of Universal, like those are, I mean, Florida is a studio on like technically speaking, there is technically a studio, but like you've got sound stages and like or backlot space or whatever to work with or backstage area to work with. But what would Disney like? What other than a plate like other than an area like the Challenge Trail? Was there even anything any place they could feasibly put it?
I thought about this when I was pitching, when I was doing that Armchair Imagineering video. I thought about like what spaces are there for Disney to even do mazes, and like they could do something in the upstairs of the Star Wars launch bay, the old Innovations building. They could do something up there. They could do something in what is currently still an Avengers Campus Overflow shop, but the old Who Wants to Be a Millionaire Play It building, where they did like the Arendelle Frozen Fun and all that stuff. And I think there's another soundstage in the Hollywoodland area that's not really being used for much. But yeah, there's really only a couple of pockets of space that they could probably even use for mazes. And I think they just don't think it's worth doing for multiple reasons.
Well, I mean, again, it's like it obviously works for them, and I don't think tiny little kids who are there to trick or treat and meet Goofy in a different costume are all that pressed about if they get to go through a maze. So, does Scary Farm ever do anything with IP, or are they pretty much just original?
It's mostly, they basically only ever do original mazes with a very few exceptions in past years. I think there was at one point, like long ago, at one point for a while, they did license the Evil Dead IP. And I can't remember what horror movie it was, but there was one horror movie that had its premiere at Knott's, and they, as part of a package deal, they did like that year they did a Scary Farm maze promoting the movie and also hosted the premiere. I can't remember what movie it was.
Did the movie have like a scene at Knott's Scary Farm, at Knott's Berry Farm or something? Or?
I don't think so. I think it was just part of some package deal where they were like, we want a maze and Universal doesn't want to do one with us. I don't know.
So we'll do our premiere here too, sure.
So there have been a couple of times throughout history that they've done licensed IP, and of course Elvira had a residency there, and now Henson has a residency there with Puppet Up, but that's not a maze thing. So more often than not, they just do original mazes that are very evocative of certain IPs. So example, Waxworks, which we talked about earlier, is legally distinct from House of Wax.
I was going to say that Gabby stopped herself from saying the full title. Yeah. Very good. Any lawyers watching?
The new maze, Bloodline, when it was announced, it's two warring vampire factions, but apparently at one point, I don't know if it was actually in development or if this was just a rumor, that it was going to be vampires versus werewolves. So again, legally distinct from Underworld.
I thought you were going to go with Twilight, but...
And legally distinct from Twilight. Legally distinct from all the things.
Which, I mean, if you got two different major franchises that are about vampires versus werewolves, then why would you be concerned about the legality of that?
Yeah.
It's one type of monster against another type of monster. I remember this with Universal and talking about them not using their assets that they would probably own. When you're exiting the horror makeup show, since the theming is the Pantages Theater, and they've got a bunch of posters as you're walking down to either the gift shop or out the exit for old Universal horror movies. And I think within the last few years they've updated them, but instead of getting the whatever high quality scan there might be in an archive somewhere, they clearly did a Google search for the posters and blew them up. And so there are a couple that are quite noticeably pixelated because they've been blown up to 27 by 40. But it's a dimly lit hallway, so I guess they're counting on no one noticing that. So
Well.
before we go here, I was going to ask because I just saw. So how many times have you seen Weird Al this year?
On this tour, 3. Twice in LA and once in San Diego.
Okay, because 2 nights ago was my second, and then I've got one more on Sunday. And was there a lot of... So he didn't do the... I'm doing it a bunch of times this year because I actually planned the trip around him being in Orlando because he had 3 North Carolina dates, but 1 was on the coast.
Mm.
And I have no reason to ever go to Wilmington, but I do have a reason to go to Orlando, so that I could justify that. And I've got a reason to go to Orlando in October as well, so. But to make up for the fact that he didn't come through North Carolina in 2018, so I wanted to get as much out of it as I could. And I can't call it disappointing because they're great shows. I'm seeing a lot of stuff I've never seen before, but the closest thing I could use that to call that is, I guess, just out of bad luck. A lot of the songs that he's pulled from have been either straight out of Linwood or Alpocalypse, which I had seen those tours, and then between the 2 shows I've already seen, there's a lot of overlap of the stuff I had never seen before being done more than once. Like, he closed with Albuquerque both times, which, I mean, that's always great to see. So what in the 3 times that you saw them, was there a lot of overlap, or did you get a pretty good mix across?
There was some overlap. So the two LA shows, there was no overlap other
Were
than
they back to back?
Unplugged medley. But then the San Diego show, I think everything in the San Diego show he had done in at least one of the 2 LA shows.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. He other than the cover song, which was different in each show, but the cover song at the end, which in San Diego was Rebel Yell, and in LA were Cinnamon Girl and Natural Woman.
That I would have liked to have seen Rebel Yell. I think it was like a night or 2 before the Orlando gig was when he did All Star, which I had known he had done All Star before, which that would have been fun. Of course, for the Orlando show, he did Skipper Dan, which got the biggest reaction of the night, and then people went nuts during the Haunted Mansion segment and the chant.
Yeah.
So
it was the same when I saw him, because I saw him for the Alpocalypse tour. I saw him at Hard Rock on City Walk, and as you can imagine, that crowd probably mostly consisted of skippers.
So is there anything that you know that he has played between 2018 and this year that you know is a potential candidate for this type of show that you never heard him done live, that you did not see him do live, that you would like to see him do?
I have not seen him do Airline Amy live, but I know that that's in the Vanity Tour rotation.
I think he might have done that in Raleigh. I'm trying to think, because he actually, for me saying that there was like overlap between the Raleigh show and the Orlando show and getting a few things I've seen over the years, the Orlando show, he did a bunch of the ones I wanted to hear. He did Night Santa Went Crazy and Nature Trail to Hell, which were big ones for me. Sorry, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to pull this up. I'm trying to think of anything else. I think the other the one other big one is UHF, because that's one I always thought, like before the Vanity tour, like that would be like a good, like when he the one tour when he mixed up the encore, like instead of having it be the Star Wars songs, he made it Albuquerque.
Right.
Like if he kept on that trajectory of like maybe doing something different with the encore, like not anything distinctly costumed, that UHF would have been a good encore song, but he's just never done it. There was that one. Can I get a set list somewhere?
I did see him do UHF on one of the LA shows. Because I remember he introduced it by teasing like they were going to play the new song from the movie.
He did that. Yeah. The other night.
Yeah. And then he's like, unfortunately we can't. So instead we'll play the theme from our last movie, which came out 3 days before Daniel Radcliffe was born.
There it is. Now, whoever put this set list up for the Charlotte gig, I know for a fact that Al did not do Why Does This Always Happen to Me in Charlotte. He did CNR. And I don't know how they know that this is just unforgivable. But no, okay, so the big one that I wanted to hear that he did that night was I Remember Larry. Did he do Airline Amy? Is that on here? For some reason I thought he did Airline Amy that night. He did not. No, it was when I was your age. I was thinking of something off the deep end. Is he doing a lot off of Bad Hair Day on those shows? I know he's doing Santa Went Crazy and I Remember Larry. I know he hasn't done Everything You Know Is Wrong, but has he done?
I don't think he's done
two.
I don't think he's done Since You've Been Gone.
I meant like of like the rock songs of like Calling in Sick or
yeah, I
or
don't.
Sick of You.
I don't remember. I feel like I've seen on YouTube I'm So Sick of You, but I might be wrong, and I don't remember if I've seen anything of him doing Calling in Sick.
Okay.
But I do not remember. Yeah. And yeah, Everything You Know Is Wrong has always been the white whale.
I wonder if that's just. Well, I mean, Calling in Sick is like that chorus is pretty shouty, and I noticed the last few tours he has had to change the key on a few songs, and so maybe at this point it's like maybe let's not do that. And Everything You Know Is Wrong is kind of a little bit higher. It's not like the hardest song to do, but I maybe the thought is like that, and it's also kind of technically involved. There's a lot of stuff going on with that song.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about this with Tony a while ago, and Tony was saying, well, he could do like he does with Dare to Be Stupid, just do a different style for it, but whatever.
Well, I would imagine with Dare to Be Stupid, that's more kind of thinking like with the Unplugged medley, where that's like the one or one of the only one original songs of his that's pretty well known.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thought is,
well,
I'm saying that I'm not going to do any of the hits, but I want to throw this one in here because it was an original, but I don't want to do it the way that it's known for, so I'm going to do it this way. Possibly. I guess one other thing while we're talking about that is, did you get to see the movie at any of the...
Not yet, but I'm seeing it next week.
Damn it. Because Tony sent me this, that Alamo Drafthouse, we have one in Raleigh, that they are at some locations are going to be screening the movie. And he sent me the link. It's like, they might be playing it in Raleigh. Check this out. And then I looked, and it's like, scroll down and select your location to find a showtime. Then you click Raleigh, and it's like, no showtimes for your location. So I might have to enjoy it on the Roku channel. But was Roku channel the one that bought up all the Quibi stuff?
Yep, all the Quibbies are on Roku channel, so an entire made-for-phone season of Reno 911 is only available on Roku channel, but the new Reno 911 movie is on Paramount Plus.
What I would have enjoyed with Quibi is if, since they were designed to view on your phone, is if they had done them vertically, and Roku still bought up the rights to it, and they had no idea, because it's like no one has seen any of the Quibbies, and so they get it, and so you're watching it on your TV on Roku, and then everything's just vertical.
Apparently the thing with Quibi was that the shows had to be designed to like work both horizontally and vertically, but I don't know if that was actually true in practice or if that was just a mandate Katzenberg gave that nobody actually paid attention to.
I don't think even Katzenberg would know. I do remember getting the ads for Quibi on like YouTube videos for like a couple of weeks before it imploded, where the whole premise was like, is like, oh, is my table ready yet? Oh yes, it'll be ready in one Quibi. They were trying to make that a thing, like that's going to catch on. It's like I'm in line at the DMV. Okay, I'll be able to get through a few Quibbies before it's my turn.
Quibi.
Is Katzenberg in a box on the street yet? Or are we still a few more failed business ventures away from that happening?
I don't think he's there yet, but apparently he did remove Quibi from his LinkedIn history.
Why would Katzenberg need a LinkedIn? Like you're Jeffrey
I asked
Katzenberg.
the same thing. Why is this necessary?
And then
like,
when people realize Katzenberg has one, then like what? Elon Musk, Richard Branson, they slowly delete their LinkedIns before people notice. Okay, I think that's all I've got for this.
All right.
Well,
this was fun.
It was, and thank you for jumping on, being part of this, and hopefully. I try and do this if I'm on vacation and I have a hotel to myself, because I can't really do this at home. So next time I'm at a convention or at HHN or something, I'll probably reach out and see what people are up to, and hopefully we can make that work again. But thank you for doing this tonight. I've enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
All right, you have a good night. Enjoy your next HHN. You said this weekend or something?
Yes, I think on Sunday I'm going to HHN, I believe. I still don't know if I will have time to do every maze because, there's a finite number of hours in the night and these places get crowded. But
yes, that's been, it's whenever I come back to this, to this, I'm reminded it's. And I don't want to sound like the person who's trying to make everything about them or like you're smarter than anyone, but it's like if you're in a group of people and you're taking your time walking, maybe don't like disperse or like, I'm saying like the groups of people who it's like, okay, you're going to try and get around us. Okay, we're going to start veering in this direction, or people who are just not conscientious of, oh, we're in a large group and there might be other people in this crowded area who might need to get by. We're not going to change our speed or our trajectory at all. But no, there was one last thing. When you talk about Scary Farm and Six Flags being more like they let the actors do a lot more and more engagement with the guests. I do remember 2019 during I think the maze I did the most was Ghostbusters, because I think that was my favorite one that year. And there was one time the version they had here It's the scene on the roof after Dana and Lewis have been possessed, and the actor playing Dana is like laying on like that bench thing on top of on the temple. It's like the hole. It's like a hole in the wall, and you walk by, and it's her a little ways off in the distance, like laying on the thing, and then the big scare was Lewis Tully coming out and asking if you're the gatekeeper or the keymaster or something. And that happens, and then there was like a group of like frat bros in front of me, and one of them decided to just like stand right up in front of him and just like stare him down to get a reaction out of him. And then that's like I think the only time I've seen one of the scare actors like break character and just like nod their head no and just like kind of like no, you gotta keep going. Which I mean, in their defense, like I totally get because you're holding up the line and being kind of a dick, but then it's also like,
right.
It's also like I can see the appeal and like wanting more interaction out of that, so it's whatever. Okay, I'm done now. All right. Well, thanks again for being a part of this. You have a good night.
You too. Good to talk to you. It's
right.
been a while.
Yeah. All right. And maybe not inviting myself onto anything, but I think I did threaten one time. Next time I'm out there, making you watch Addicted to Love. I don't know if it was you and Allie who were talking about doing like a rom-com themed series, or if that was you and your brother. But...
yeah, Nick and I were. That was a project idea we had a while ago that hasn't gone anywhere.
Okay.
I will say though, because I remember you voted for this last year. We did watch House on Criterion.
Okay. Which I didn't watch that for the first time till I think maybe a couple years ago. I'd known about it for a long time. That series that guy did, he would do his main series of like bigger titles like Clerks and RoboCop or whatever, but then he did like sub-series that he would do at midnight, and for Halloween one of them was House, and my first time being aware of it was watching that trailer in the theater. And if you've ever seen the trailer for the movie, how it starts off with like the catchy pop song. It's like it starts off creepy, and then there's the catchy pop song playing, and then it's like the heads of all it's like the opening of like a sitcom. It's the heads of all the girls.
Right,
it's like the
right.
prince riding on horseback through the field, and then it cuts back to creepy stuff, and then it just gets crazier and crazier, and then it just suddenly just ends. And it's like I need to watch this. So that's I look forward to that to hearing you talk about that. So.
That'll be in a couple of weeks that'll be heard. So
all right, okay,
yeah.
All right. Well, you have a good night.
You have a good night. Yeah.
All right. See you.